Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Toulas Tips for Caregivers on this beautiful but yet very hot Saturday. So pleased that you're with me today. I am very excited today to have a guest back who I had here in the beginning part of April, but we weren't able to cover everything that we needed to cover in April. So I've invited Robert Morgan back with me today. He is an elder law attorney who's very active in the community, working with seniors and with caregivers. I know he sits on the board for the Alzheimer's Association, and a couple of other things that I'll let him tell you about. Welcome, Robert.
Oh, well, thank you, Toula. I mean, I can't believe it's been since April already. So
didn't that go fast?
Yes, unfortunately it did. So
yeah, the year is really zipping by. I can't really believe we're into July already. But when I step outside, I realize it.
Yeah, that makes both of us.
Yeah, both really fast. If this is your first time tuning in to Toulas Tips for Caregivers, or even if it isn't, let me remind you, first of all, that I am here for you, the caregiver. My background is medical social work. I currently work full-time at community hospice, and I have an initiative that I'm in charge of called the Caregiver Coalition of Northeast Florida. And we've been really working hard to go upstream, if you will, and pull the caregiver out from behind the shadows of the person that they're taking care of and care for the caregiver. There just aren't enough people in our community doing that. So the Caregiver Coalition of Northeast Florida does conduct several workshops every year. We just had a fantastic Caregiver Expo in April, and we've got some other initiatives that we'll tell you about a little bit later. But again, if this is your first time listening, know that I'm here for you. This is a live call-in show. The number, one more time, is 854-1320. I'd love for you to be able to call in and ask questions, ask me about resources. Let me stretch my brain cells a little bit this morning. Let me see if I can come up with some ideas to help you. If you're struggling as a caregiver and you don't know where to turn for help or assistance in this role, that's one of the reasons I'm here, so please call. I'm also here to provide you some encouragement and some inspiration. I know it's a hard job. And thirdly, to let you know that you're not alone. In America, as a matter of fact, there are over 66 million caregivers. If you haven't been affected by caregiving in your life, you will. Before we get into some thoughts with Robert, I wanted to also let you know that I've got a couple of gift certificates for you this morning. For the callers who call in and decide to be on the show and either make a comment or ask a question, I have 2 gift certificates for Riverfront Cafe and Catering downtown in the Riverside area in the Haskell Building, a beautiful place to go with a nice overlook of the river and some delicious food. And then Hardage Giddens has been generous enough, one of our sponsors who has generously hosted and sponsored this show for 2 years now. They've been generous enough to give me 2 $500 gift certificates. Let me say that again. 2 $500 gift certificates for any pre-planning that you may want to do for yourself or for your loved one. And pre-planning, Robert, is a lot of what we're going to be talking about today.
A great segue, by the way.
Well, thank you. It just kind of worked out that way. I love it when that happens. You know, we're going to talk a little bit about pre-planning because you're about my age. I'm a baby boomer, and we're in the throes of learning that, okay, our parents are starting to decline, and like everybody, we want to be able to see our parents live in the comfort of their own home for as long as possible, surrounded by the people that love them and the things that are familiar to them. But we're also aware that as their health declines, their physical function often really does decline too. And, you know, different things come into play that make them not as able to do things as well as perhaps they were able to before. And so you realize, wow, I need to start thinking about this. What does the future hold for my parents? How much longer are they going to be able to live alone? And what do I need to do to help them get things in place? And yet there's always that little tenuous relationship. You're the child, and you're the child who's never really asked them about their financial matters before or their legal matters before. And let's face it, we have parents of a generation, for the most part, they're still pretty private about those kinds of things.
Oh, I was going to say, before we even started the show, we were speaking, I was talking about how my parents have told me that they have all their important documents in their nightstand and a lockbox, and whenever the time comes I can go in there, but prior to that it's their stuff, just leave it alone.
Yeah, don't bother it.
So here I am sitting here trying to give all this wonderful advice about pre-planning, and their pre-planning is it's in the nightstand. So,
and it's locked, by the way.
Right,
I hope you know where the key is.
I hope they're right. That's all I can say. So.
Well, I've got a father who's the same way. All of his stuff, his nightstand is a 2-drawer file cabinet. And I hope you're listening, Daddy. Is a 2-drawer file cabinet that's crammed full of stuff, probably dating back to the 70s. And he tells me the same thing. Oh, just go over there and look if something happens, or call somebody that I used to work with. Daddy, you've been retired for 10 years now. Who do I call? I don't know where to go. So I've got some work to do, and it's really hard to broach that subject with them. And again, it's kind of a changing of the roles, and that's not easy for the child who's trying to assist and do that, and it's not easy for them.
No, I agree. I mean, that's one of the reasons why Alzheimer's Association, I know AARP was another one, but specifically I know with the Alzheimer's Association, serving on the board, that they have a new sort of a program that they're trying to put out to the public, which specifically is to pre-plan to reduce stress. And it sounds like a bunch of cliches all put together a little bit, but it is exactly what it's intended to do, which is, as you just indicated, there's 66 million caregivers, most of whom are involuntary at this caregiving game.
Exactly right.
And they don't realize that things need to be done, and more groups that deal with the elderly or deal with those who are disabled or infirm are now starting to figure out that you need a game plan. You need to do something to try to reduce the stress level on the caregiver who's just learning how to get into a lot of these government systems and a lot of these programs that are just very complicated, but for their loved one getting older would not even know about it.
Right, and the typical person on the streets, the average citizen, doesn't know about all these programs and where to go for assistance, and that's why we're doing the show.
Yeah, no, right. There's unfortunately, a lot of initial hit and miss, and just hearing other people suggest options, and sometimes it's great advice, and sometimes it's not such good advice. And again, the Alzheimer's Association, as I know that personally, is going out of its way to try to make sure there's a game plan in effect, and it isn't just it's in the drawer, or it's in my nightstand. Or if it is there's at least there is an actual game plan of what's going on, or a list or things to do, so that when something happens to a loved one, you at least have some steps you can try to take, or at least know where to start.
Because that crisis call will come.
Oh yes.
Something will happen to the loved one, and if some of these steps haven't already been put in place, you're going to be in bedlam, you're going to be in crisis, you're going to be very stressed out. Something's wrong with your loved one, first of all.
Right.
That's hard to see. And then you've got the legal and financial administrative things to try to deal with, and you have no place to start.
Well, that's true, and first you have to be able to even get out of the house to go do the legal and financial administrative things.
Right. So we've got a lot to tell you about. You're listening to Toula's Tips for Caregivers. We're getting ready to go into a commercial break. Please stay tuned, and we'll be right back here after this break.